Good. Welcome back to another edition of the Three Stooges podcast. We're the Stooges. Well, I'm Joe Davidson, Sacramento Bee, Chris Jackson of West Coast Preps, and the bearded great one, Jordan Georgeson of Gold Country Media. If we could match that beard, we could just walk into any venue without paying. We could walk out of any venue without paying. But Jordan's not like that. Jordan is a man of integrity and all that good stuff. But good to see you guys. We had opening week of high school football in the South Joaquin section. And I think the thing that we talked about a lot over the weekend, as we always do three-way texting, is some of the behavior's got to get better. These teams, these coaches, these schools, you're on a big stage, whether you're playing a game in Orangevale or in Del Paso Heights or in Sacramento or anywhere in Placer County, in Yolo County. People are watching. Everybody's got cell phones. You've got fans, and the referees are watching. We touched on this last week. If you get thrown out of a game, it used to be one game sit out. Now it's three games, up to six possible if it's really egregious, because there's an effort by the CIF, the governing body for high school sports in the state, to curb bad behavior. And Chris Jackson and I were at the Casa Roble home game in Orangevale against Placer. Great opener, terrific programs, good coaches, good rapport. But during the junior varsity game and the varsity game, we heard too much, stuff on both sidelines, complaining about the officiating, complaining about this and blah, blah, blah. And I hear it in the stands, just play. Just mute it and play. And then Casa Roble won that game 46-30. The referee crew was a little green. There was confusion on a lot of things. They'll get better. It's all a work in progress. But it's not a good look when the referees argue and bicker back and forth with coaches. And then in Del Paso Heights on ESPN, the big showdown, top-ranked Folsom Bulldogs and the number two storied Grant Pacers. And some of those Grant Pacers took the field with all the exuberance and excitement and acted as if they've never been on the big stage. And they're lucky and they're fortunate that the referees didn't throw them off the big stage. So the point being, act like you've been there. Some of the Grant players apologized later for their behavior. But I had people from at the Grant game before the game, they were so proud that the game was full, great atmosphere. Let's show off our wonderful school on ESPN. And then at halftime, some of those people ran into me and they were embarrassed. They were embarrassed by the two unsportsmanlike penalties by Grant before the game, from the pregame antics to the four unsportsmanlike penalties in the first half. Folsom won 51-13. We'll dig into more of that. And I thought there were some cheap shots delivered on Ryder Lyons, the Folsom quarterback. He handled it well. I thought Folsom handled it well. I'm long-winded here, but wow, Jordan, I'm going to bounce over to you. You were in Del Paso Heights. It's this area is too good for football for players and some assistant coaches to act like it's all about them. And we're in an era of social media and instant gratification, but and Grant's better than that. And the whole key, we always talk about this, guys, is how do teams respond? That's what will define these seasons.
I fully agree, Joe. And, I mean, all three of us have talked about it both on this show and, on our own that, a lot of times Grant's perception in the public is kind of unfair. And, I know that Del Paso Heights has not always been the best neighborhood in the area, but at the same time, the people that are acting like everyone associated with Grant High School is a problem. I mean, that's just unfair. And Grant knows the perception that they have, and they wear it as a chip on their shoulder, as they absolutely should. And unfortunately, in this situation, it just felt like they kind of did some things that felt like they affirmed what the public thinks of them. And I don't think it's some of the things that people are saying because this whole situation's gone completely viral now online. Some of the stuff people are commenting are kind of still a little unfair to Grant. At the end of the day, we've talked about it last week. They're still teenagers, and sometimes, 15, 16, 17 year olds, when they get on that big stage, they, kind of lose their head a little bit. And do I think Grant as a whole is a dirty team? No. Do I think they maybe laid a few cheap shots and crossed a few lines that they shouldn't have? Absolutely. But the people that are comparing Grant to Bishop Sycamore and saying that this is typical for them, it's not. And I think the big thing we talked about too, outside of, the unsportsmanlike stuff and shooting yourselves in the foot, because Grant was in this game and it felt like some of those penalties were really kind of dictated Folsom pulling away there. But there was a world where Grant was hanging around in that first half and they had momentum going into halftime. Um, but the big thing from this game is Folsom's been the top dog in this area for the last 15 or so years. And I understand, want to challenge him. I even have no problem, as long as you stay on your side of the 50, I have no problem with running out of the tunnel and maybe a little bit of chatter staying on your side, just kind of, rousing up, firing up your guys and letting them know. And then, but again, stay on your side. Don't be bumping Folsom coaches. Don't be running into their warm-ups, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, don't give the top dog out here more motivation and more ammo to beat you. And Chris, you and I can touch on this. We're both Raider fans, and we have seen the Raiders go into Kansas City a few times and try to stomp on the logo and do whatever they do to intimidate them. And I think all of us every time are like, why are you doing this? Like, they are already, the top team in the area, the strong team. Why are you giving them extra motivation? Don't poke the bear. But, the people that are saying this is reflective of Grant's whole program and they need to cancel the entire season or suspend everyone. No, they don't need to do that. They need, they clean things up after what I assume was a very vocal tongue lashing in the locker room at halftime. And there was a little trash talk, but that second half was way cleaner. And yes, it was unfortunate that it happened on a national audience and it doesn't look good on the school and whatnot, but I have no doubts that Grant's going to bounce back from this and be the program that we've known them to be. And I would be shocked if they're not a contender in Division One and a state title contender this year.
Chris, before you jump in, I'm going to add. I've gone to Grant games since the 1980s, and wonderful community. They embrace their Pacers. They have faced that image of a bad lot for decades. And they're high school kids and it's football, so you're going to get that. And there was a tongue lashing at halftime. Those Grant coaches are mostly Grant alums. They don't like that. The second half went without incident. The post game line afterwards was fine. But and there's a lot of good Grant kids over the years. But my point is that Grant in the previous 3 years won a Northern California championship, and they acted like they belonged. And all of a sudden now and this it could just take a couple of guys, but it reflects the whole team. So Grant has to act like they belong. Big season of expectations and all that. But Chris Jackson, the floor is yours.
It was not Grant's best day. It's best showing in a lot of regards, right? The pregame stuff, what happens there with sportsmanlike penalty before the game even begins. Right then and there, you've already put yourself in a bind against a program like Folsom, where Folsom's great enough to where they can run it themselves, but you can't beat yourself there either, right? And that's some of what Grant did early on. They beat themselves. They had a tough day. It was not their best day. Joe, like you had mentioned, looked like some cheap shots. The one on Ryder Lyons where helmet comes off and then the bump of him after too. That's not the way it should be, but we've covered Grant many times. We've seen Grant be on great behavior many, many times. I've come from the Bay Area where I covered Oakland City schools. I covered a Castlemont where there was this perception of, oh, they're an Oakland school, this and that. The coaches are great people. The kids were great kids. A lot of kids with 4.0 GPAs. But Clymonds is a powerhouse. What has Coach Peters done there? Discipline, win. The fans are excellent to you. The kids are excellent to you. Grant, it's so much of that, but it wasn't Grant's best day. They will admit that. I've seen some of their coaches mention this on social media after. It wasn't their best day. They're holding themselves, they're holding this team, this program accountable. Unfortunately, it was on ESPN and the whole world got to see it. Now it's going viral all over social media, right? But they have a chance to overcome it, right? How you respond to adversity, how you respond to a loss, to failure, whatever it is, defines you. How do you respond to this? How do you come back this week and show yourselves? How do you come back Monday at school? How do you come back Tuesday at school at practice? Friday against Central? How do you come back playing these teams, Cardinal, Newman, De La Salle? I'm not saying even win, but just showing who you are again, right? We know what Grant is. Grant's had the greatest people come there, assistants who are as dedicated as they come, Carl Reed, Thompson, those guys. You don't see a program pump up other programs, probably in the whole state like Grant does. The way they've pumped up Wheatland, they were applying to Vanden kids over the weekend. Great job. You kids are awesome. I'm seeing Grant coaches freaking support Haley Smith, the girls basketball, every sports star at Liberty Ranch, right? That's who we know Grant is. It wasn't Grant's best day. I'm sure Grant admits that the second half we saw, Grant changed, right? They weren't really flagged for anything. They looked a lot more calm. Post game was all clean. So if I were a betting man, I'd probably say Grant responds really well, and I'd say Grant probably responds to playing where they're playing at Hughes Stadium in November, right? Yes, it was a blowout, but we'll get into Folsom in a second. I'm sure Joe, Folsom's that good, but Grant, excited to see how they respond to this and see how they respond to the perception that's come out from people from this game in ESPN and how they respond to that and just even on the field results.
Yeah, and I got a lot of emails and social media questions. And people were in a society of complainers. Everybody's got a complaint. People were complaining that, oh, you couldn't hear the mic'd referees, and is that on Grant? Typical Grant. That's the CIF. Those guys. Well, no, no, that's on ESPN. Grant doesn't hand out headphones for referees to be mic'd up. That's on ESPN. The CIF, this isn't even a CIF event. The CIF events are the playoff games. So there's some of that needed to be and can the CIF step in and start suspending Grant players or any other players? Well, not necessarily, not until it's their playoffs, unless it's something really egregious. I thought the white hat referee handled it really well. And he was talking to players, talking to coaches, and it certainly got settled at halftime. But let's touch on Folsom really quick. We'll roundtable this, and then we'll talk about. I think every week we'll call it game balls. Who are in the game ball teams with big ranking upsets or big wins out of nowhere. But to touch real quick on Folsom, Ryder Lyons showed that he's the best player in Sacramento. He's one of the great players in this region's history. He got knocked around, helmet yanked off. He was talked to, bounced. You can't intimidate this guy. You're not going to rattle him. You're not going to get inside his head. 408 yards passing, 31 completions, 37 attempts, 4 touchdowns, 2 to Rob Larson. He also ran for 1. He had 177 yards passing in the third quarter alone. He had great footwork again. He did all his progression reads. And Grant couldn't catch up to him. And I thought Folsom's defense was exceptional. Jason Hill Jr. is one of the great two-way players in this region. He's going to Stanford. Tremendous cover defense. Also could play on offense. Isaiah Williams showed what he can do as a receiver. And Rob Larson was terrific as a receiver, 170 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. And then Jamison Powell, he muffs an early punt. It's such a bad word, muffed. He bobbled it, and then he collects it 98 yards. Just tremendous downfield blocking. Wow. And the Coach Paul Doherty always says, hey, it's always our defense that carries us and leads the way. And I thought the defense was exceptional there. Let's circle back a little later on Folsom, so we're not overdosing on Folsom, because I want to get your guys' thoughts on Ryder Lyons and all that. But Jordan, I thought Placer County, right there in the heart of your coverage area, had 2 teams with big wins. Woodcreek rolling Jesuit on the strength of 7 forced turnovers, and also Whitney of Rockland beating West Park of Roseville. Both of those were rankings upsets, but your quick hits on that. That's some pretty good coaching, pretty good preparation, and how fitting that Whitney and Woodcreek play this week. It's the Upstart Bowl.
Oh, it really is. And these are 2 programs that, a lot of people on the outside were shocked about these results, but these 2 programs weren't. Woodcreek, I have to give actually a shout out to my sister-in-law, because her boyfriend is one of the running backs coaches for Woodcreek, and she's texting me updates from the game, and I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, she's messing with me. This isn't happening. What do you mean? I see one that says 31-7 at halftime. I'm like, what? Like, I'm double taking at this. And Woodcreek's defense, I mean, unbelievable. I think 6 or 7 turnovers. They ran 2 plays, Woodcreek offensively in the first quarter. Both of them went for touchdowns. I mean, they just dominated Jesuit in this game, and a result not a lot of us expected. And we've talked to some of the, a lot of these coaches. We go out to these practices, and a lot of things I think all of us ask some of the coaches, not only about their team, but we ask who they think some of the stronger teams in the section and in this area are. And a lot of the SFL teams were very high on Jesuit. So that says something about Woodcreek. I mean, they stuck it to 12 Bridges in that scrimmage and played really well against them. So these guys very much might be legit. Just a huge win for them. And then Whitney, I mean, coming back from down 13-3 in the second half to beat West Park. Carson Floyd just dynamic on both ends of the field. I saw a clip of him hitting a West Park receiver on an incompletion. Just you don't see a quarterback playing safety with that type of physicality. This kid, I think, is a Division I prospect in two different positions. And then the linebacking core, Whitney, I mean, maybe a little bit undersized, but you know what? Head coach Zach McNally was a middle linebacker on De La Salle when they were going through the 151 game streak. And I think he was a part of the team that lost that game in Bellevue. And, he's not the tallest guy out there, but I'll tell you what, when you're playing middle linebacker at De La Salle, you're playing with some tenacity, and he coaches his linebackers up the same way. This is a Whitney team that feels like they've kind of been, the team on the bottom of the SFL for a while. And I think that they are excited to prove that it's not the same old Whitney team. And we've talked about this all the time. This is a school that has great athletes, and it feels like only a matter of time before the football team gets going. And it feels like a team that a lot of times probably would make noise in the playoffs if they just get that fourth win. And this is a huge win to set the tone for them.
Yeah, well said. And Chris Jackson, who earns a game ball for you here on the Three Stooges podcast? Who's a team or two that turned your head?
I'll name two where our staff was at. I was in Orangevale with you, Joe, right? Casa Roble. Casa Roble was my first practice. I stopped to in the fall, and you could tell the energy was different from assistants to just Chris Horner's pretty much always got a smile on his face, but you could tell that this smile was a little bit bigger, right? Because of their buy-in, their chemistry this year. There's no more quarterback battle, right? That's always tough to have that. Any decision you make on that, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, there's going to be blowback, all of that stuff. And that affected them last year. There's no doubt about it, right? Aiden Lopez, a great quarterback, but winning that job and injuries on that roster just didn't go according to Cass's plan. 2025, you've got Aiden Lopez back. Everyone absolutely adores the kid. You've got some big transfers. You've got Tariq Lofton, a Folsom transfer, a great basketball player who just committed to Southern Oregon. I think not long before that game has a couple of big touches. Jalen Barcenas, who's a Folsom transfer, 12 touches, 115 yards. I mean, Joe, he looked faster than lightning when that ball was in his hands, right? There was that little touch pass. It felt like a Tavon Austin touch pass early on to him. Jared Alexander, 6'3", 6'4", a great basketball player, has a catch over a guy. Carter Koss is everywhere. Mason Higbee. Then the defense. There was a pick six offensively where Placer got some points. There was another Placer score where it came after a roughing the passer on fourth down. And I think the refs, I don't think it was the wrong call. I think the refs just threw that flag late, right? And it was because, from what I was told, it was some of their first games, right? So that's week one, all that stuff. But Casa played a great game. You had Dunedin Tupo, I should say, is sophomore, 17 tackles. Xander Freitag, 14 tackles. Casa Roble deserves a game ball, and I'll tell you what, this team, I wouldn't be surprised to see them playing at Hughes Stadium again. And they're not just saying that; they've been saying, "We'll see you in Los Angeles. We'll see you at State." That's their end goal. But talking about for game two, Aiden Lopez, he's all about playing Ponderosa this week. That was his focus within 5 minutes of that final score. So they get one, and the other one, Atwater. Let's go down to the Merced area, the furthermost part of this section. What a freaking win for Atwater. I am regretting not putting them in our preseason rankings now. I knew I would regret that. Here we are. They're now 22-0 at Vacaville. They come back and win in overtime 65-64. Their quarterback, AJ Banks, he just announced his first offer too. 8 touchdowns, almost 600 total yards. 6'4" receiver Silas Austin. Tony, he's a Division I kid, right? He's one of those kids that deserves to say he's a D1 bound kind of guy. 6'4", 284 receiving yards. He got a tipped pass there in overtime to make it 63-64, then the 2-point try. So, kid, I don't know if he had a reception that game or not. Correct me if I'm wrong, Atwater, but he catches it to win. Atwater goes on the road, puts up 65 freaking points, makes a statement at a program that's consistently at the top of the Monticello Empire League. To beat that team, to do that on the road, I'm sure that was a fun bus ride back home. And Atwater deserves a game ball, and they've got Houston coming there this week, and that's another great battle in that part of the section. So Casa Roble, Atwater. Congratulations. You guys made some statements right away.
Well said. I was really impressed with Casa Roble too. I'm always so, one thing that I really dig about this gig is the home environments. And talking to Casa Roble coach Chris Horner before the game, he said it's just not normal where you have a rivalry non-league opening series with Placer where they're so similar, where it matters for the communities. It's a big social epicenter on campus, and the Dairy Queen right there in Orangeville on, the party started on Thursday night, 24 hours before kickoff. They had a big, uh, celebration to honor the Rams, and it was festive and fun. Who does that up at the Taco Tree up in Auburn near the campus of Placer High? They don't quite do that, but that's their kind of their little hub there. So really cool. And I think the home team has won that series every year in the last 5 or so years. And not too here in a couple of weeks here, Jordan, the Casa Roble Rams, or I'm sorry, the Placer Hillman will be hosting Del Oro, and Del Oro just came off a nice big win with its quarterback who had 4 touchdowns. Who's the quarterback? What happened against Downey, and how encouraged are you if you're a Del Oro fan? Well, not only you're not a Del Oro fan, but you're a Del Oro graduate. But anybody who's a fan of Del Oro football, a year after 2 wins, and people half the town wanted the coaches removed, but a nice new start for the new quarterback and the old story Hillman or Golden Eagles.
Yeah, I talked to Del Oro quarterback Nolan Save after their black and gold scrimmage probably 2, 3 weeks ago. And if you would ask me in the first half of that scrimmage, I would have said it's looking a little rough for Del Oro again this year. If you asked me about the second half of that scrimmage, I would have said this team looks like they could be top three, top four in the SFL. And I mean, they looked like a team that didn't go 2-8 the year before. I heard down at their scrimmage with Central Catholic and Calaveras and Houston that they looked like they were holding their own against some of the top dogs in the section. They didn't look like a 2-8 team, and then he comes out and beats up on a Downey team that's won 10 games the last 3 seasons. And Downey's been kind of the powerhouse down in Modesto, especially in terms of the public schools down that way. So I mean, huge win for Del Oro, and from the looks of it too, I mean, they really were in control the whole game. I think they were up 2 scores early. 39-14 was the final. Big tight end Landon Perry, he's going to be a problem, and then Brock Sherman going both ways. I think he's one of the most underrated running backs in the area. That's going to be a fantastic atmosphere, that Placer Del Oro game. It's been a fantastic one the last couple of years. It's been the game that I was at that week the last couple of years, and I'm going to be there again. It's one of the best ones. When it was up in Placer and Del Oro had one of their stronger teams, and Placer was kind of in a little bit of a rut that time. Placer came through and they kind of stuck it to Dio in a game that I think the final score was, I want to say it was like a 10-point game or something at the end of it, like 35-25 or something like that. But Placer was ahead for most of that game. Then Caden Pinnock just took control. And then last year, Placer just comes in. They get their first win over DO in 20 something years. Now, granted, there was probably a 16-year span where they weren't playing. They used to be in the same league back in the day. And that was another tremendous environment. And I think that was also the game that kind of ignited the spiral for Del Oro a little bit last year. I know a lot of the fans were shocked by that. And I think all of us that covered those teams weren't necessarily shocked because of how strong that Placer team was and how it was expected to be a down year at DO. But it doesn't look like it's a program that'll be down for long. They have a bye week this week, so they can focus all their attention. I'm sure they're going to be at that Placer home opener on Friday night against Laguna Creek. But yeah, Del Oro, I've heard from a few people that have kind of seen clips from that game and have checked it out a little bit, and they said that they don't expect this Del Oro team to be very down, and they think that they can make that push right up there in that tier, kind of with Granite Bay of who's going to get one of those top four spots in division or in the SFL, and they could potentially be in the running for a home game. That's a deep league, and it feels like the SFL really kind of cemented itself upon the section this weekend with the Folsom game, the Oak Ridge game, and then what Rockland did to Turlock too.
Well said. And we're talking about the Sierra Foothill League. How about the Oak Ridge Trojans of El Dorado Hills, Coach Casey Taylor? It needs to break in a new quarterback. They do. They beat Frontier of Bakersfield in Bakersfield, 40-7. Nice win there. Nick Johnson had a touchdown pass. They're playing tough defense. They're going to play Mission Hills of San Marcos this week. They like to be on the road, but soon they'll be home. They'll host the St. Mary's Rams of Stockton here in a couple of weeks. How about a big game ball for the Linden Lions down in the 209, who delivered a stunning 15-12 win over Destiny Christian Academy? They were preseason ranked by us and a lot of other people. The former Capital Christian 15-12 Linden wins, really a surprise. And Destiny Christian will argue, well, we had 10 transfers that didn't get cleared and all that. Yeah, but you got the biggest lineman anywhere. You got returning players. That's a fantastic spirited effort by Linden, and Destiny Christian has to rebound with Menlo Atherton coming in. This is always our theme. It's how you respond. So that was a surprise there. Also from the 209, the Manteca Buffaloes, 29-0 over Elk Grove. And they did it a lot through the air. Is that allowed? I thought Manteca has some kind of agreement, unofficial agreement that they only run the ball, but they threw the ball a little bit. Sonora 32-14 over Oakdale, two traditional rivals down there. The Lincoln Zebras in a shootout win over Rio Linda 45-40. A game ball to Mike Morris. And Mike Morris was a longtime head football coach at Rio Linda, longtime athletic director, led them to their first section championship, longtime assistant coach, assistant coach in football now with American River College. He was back at Rio Linda, and they dedicated the field to him. They named after him. And they didn't win. Alan Berg's Lincoln Zebras and Eli Duff led the charge to win in that shootout. But neat to see a school honor one of their former greats. And he was the athletic director when Jack Garceau was in his final season at Rio Linda in 2018 when Cameron Scatterbo set all kinds of regional rushing records. They won a state championship. Garceau is now back. It's always funny when coaches come back, you think, what are you crazy? You can cuss. Why would you come back? The best gig in coaching is the assistant coach. You just coach your tight ends and maybe your safeties, and you go home, leave everything else to the head coach. Well, because they can't stay out. They're addicted, and we appreciate the coaches who come full circle. And here's another game ball, the Foothill Mustangs. School opened 60 years ago. It's in North Sacramento. Alex Gomes Coelho is the first year coach. They beat Natoma 66-26. Xavier Balderas for Foothill, 11 completions, 15 attempts, 272 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. First game as a quarterback in high school. Has always been a running back. So neat to see. We are going to applaud the powerhouse ranked teams, and we will applaud the teams trying to just get going and hope to have winning seasons and get in the playoffs. So away we go there. But Chris Jackson, is there a game? No, before we talk about games of note, your thoughts on Jamison Powell at Folsom, that guy Ryder Lyons, Folsom, that guy. I mean, he just handles everything. But those two guys look like big time national recruits. Ryder, the 5-star going to BYU. Jamison Powell, who's so good as a receiver on special teams, going to Ole Miss. So they're big time legit. But those guys showed that they're big dogs.
And I'll go to the defense first, and then I'll go to the offense. The defense, that's been their bread and butter, is what they've said. 2 years ago when they won state, what did they point to? The defense, their mantra was TNT, takes no talent. That defense was everywhere. This year, EJ Coleman, a linebacker, was he in on every play? It felt like it. Same with August Dupree, that D line, Louis DeBerry, who's got some offers, Tay Kendrick, who was a Vanden transfer. His family moved into the area. His brother is True Kendrick, who now plays at Yale. Their father played in the NFL. He looked great too. Jason Hill Jr., I mean, my goodness, did he make a statement early. Breaking up passes, that near crazy interception where from the other side of the field, I thought he got his foot in bounds, but we're on the other side of the field, so I have no idea there. Great offensively, and Ryder Lyons looked every bit like the 5-star he's touted to be. It makes me have a bone to pick with some of these recruiting sites. That's why it's hard to take them seriously, because when he committed to BYU, I saw one or two of them bumped him down to 4 stars because he committed to not the quote unquote powerhouse top 5 program in college football. He's a 5-star. Jamison Powell used to be a 4-star. Well, let's make him a 4-star again everywhere. That what Bob will freaking return 98 yards. He was dangerous in the open field, quick as can be. Isaiah Williams, a Nevada commit. I mean, you give him a screen pass and he's going 20, 30 yards. And Rob Larson, I mean, my goodness, 169 yards, 8 catches. He's got over 10 offers, and I think he just earned about probably 6, 7 more after what he just showed on ESPN against a team like Grant, right? That they look at their running back. Joseph Ironman looks like another great running back from the school. He can catch, he can run. Folsom's, and then Vlad Diakonov, the USC committed tackle. Every time I looked over, he had someone on the ground. This Folsom team is best one I've seen in quite some time now. Can they beat Sarah this week? Because that's been their kryptonite, beating Patrick Walsh. You know, Patrick Walsh has things up his sleeve. Sarah was not favored at all last year to win in Folsom, breaking in all those new starters. They did. Now, Folsom can go to San Mateo and win that game in the Bay Area. This might just be that team that goes all the way.
Oh, it's well said. More game balls. We have a whole truckload of game balls to give out, and we'll touch on him in just a moment. Reeve Sloan, I'm going to defer to Jordan. Reeve Sloan, the veteran quarterback for Rockland, and Jordan will touch on him in a minute and what they did in their opener. But how about some of these first year coaches? Jason Ott at Bella Vista, they beat Oakmont in an opener, and Bella Vista is not an easy job. It's struggled, though. It's an academic powerhouse with all kinds of upside. Pleasant Grove, Sam Cole with an opening win. Foothill with Alex Gomes-Goello. McClatchy Lions, Quantrell Jackson with an opening win for the McClatchy Lions, beating River Valley of Yuba City. Delta Saints on the Sacramento River. Tim Rapp came back after a year off. And how about a game ball also for 8-man football? The Delta Saints beat Valley Christian Academy of Roseville in an 8-man thriller that we thought would be this kind of score. 58-30 for Delta. Chase Parkinson, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. 8-man, we talked about it last week. We'll talk about it all season. It's saving football program. So kudos to those guys. Mike Strubing is back with Vista Del Lago of Folsom with a nice win over Laguna Creek. They're breaking in a nice new quarterback. They always have good quarterbacks up at Vista Del Lago. In beating Laguna Creek 35-22, sophomore Jacoby Moore, 263 yards and 4 touchdowns. So a lot of good efforts there. Jordan, how did Reeve Sloan look, the veteran quarterback? Who did Rockland beat? What was the score, and how was the defense?
I mean, Rockland really throttled Turlock in this one, 35-7. That was a game that, we kind of had some questions about Rockland coming in. How are they going to handle this outside noise? They're breaking in 3 new offensive linemen. They lost both their running backs. What's this going to look like? Well, this is a team that didn't look like it was breaking in 3 new O linemen. They averaged 6.6 yards per carry. Reeve Sloan was 15-20 with 208 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he wasn't really throwing the ball much in the second half because they were up 21-0 at halftime. They punched in their first drive for a touchdown coming out into the second half. So it's 28-0 really. There was no need for him to put the ball in the air much more than that. But I mean, Sloan gets a game ball for this, but if I got to give a game ball out for this game, it's going to be to Rockland's defensive line. Braden Denner and Asher Runyon combined for, I think, 6 or 7 sacks in this game. And almost all of them were in the first half. They got after Scout Silva right away. And then Dom Coelho, too, in the interior San Diego State commit for them. Didn't even see the field a ton last year. Was kind of a rotational guy. And that's how good he is. He's getting these offers, with limited playing time. He brought in a lot of that interior pressure that helped Denner and Runyon get these sacks because Silva's a shifty kid, and he was able to really escape a lot of the initial pressures, and they just were able to stay after him. They were resilient. A great job with them. And Jason Adams said, it's kind of the reason why these lines are so good is because iron sharpens iron, because an offensive line that he had questions about, and Adams was the first to tell me that he had some questions about his line when I went out to their practice. But, blocking a defensive line like that every day in practice, that's going to make your O-line better. And then when your O-line's getting better, the defense going up against a good O-line like that, that's going to make them better as well. And Rockland just feels like they constantly have a good defense. This year is no exception. Josiah Andrews as well, 5 passes, 106 yards and a touchdown. Connor Bowe had a good game too, 32-yard touchdown reception for him. So a big shout out to that. And if I can give out a few more game balls, Jeremy Kerr of Bear River, winning his first game back at head coach. He deserves one there. And what I love too, he shouts out his coaching staff, says he couldn't do it without those guys and the time they put in. Great guy there, good program. I think they're going to have a lot of wins. Then how about Colfax being on the road down 14-0 in the first quarter and then coming out to win that game over Calusa 34-14. Big game from Josiah Rubidoux. And then Jason Stowers, I got to give a game ball at this just because you don't get the O-line shout out. He said center Zeke Powers. He wanted to give a special shout out to him, said he had a great game. And I love giving the guys in the trenches a little extra love. And then on the 8-man side too, I want to give a game ball to a team that didn't play a game this year or this week. And head coach Dean Surface of Adventure Christian, they had to cancel their first couple games of the season, and it stinks that it has to happen for a first-year program, even playing 8-man. But it's for the right reasons. It would be easy for a lot of programs to say we're going to play no matter what because we have the number we need to field a team. He said they only have 12 players right now, and some of them are not quite cleared for eligibility yet because they're transfers or aren't officially 100% healthy. And he said I'd rather basically put something out on Facebook of saying he'd rather do this the right way and have them start when everyone's ready and healthy and doing the right thing than start them when they only have 9 eligible kids or whatever it is. And I think that's the right call, and I think that deserves a applause for that because starting a program is not easy, and a lot of people I think would decide to play this game anyway, and that's when you start getting injuries, and that's when you start having to forfeit games because you don't have enough numbers. So I applaud them for doing the right thing here and waiting till everyone's healthy and ready, and I feel like that's how you're going to get a program taking off rather than kind of pushing them out the door before they're ready.
Well said, well said. And we have game balls by the van load now since we're thinning out a little bit. How about 12 Bridges? The Raging Rhinos out of Placer County went down to Christian Brothers, a solid team, 42-7 win for Coach Chris Bean. For Connor Frontiera, the new quarterback, 3 touchdown passes, 2 to Dylan Amos. Chase Willitko, he's the returning linebacker star, but now he's the new running back, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Colton Hogue. This guy pancakes guys on the offensive line in the trenches. He also had some sacks. He's a big time player, looking very much the part as the University of Nevada commit there. So nice win there. Monterey Trail of the Oak Grove Unified had a nice satisfying win, 27-22 over Indicum. We had them ranked 7th and 8th in our rankings. Let those guys head off, and the coaches wanted to acknowledge their offensive line that helped the team rush for 328 yards and. So we appreciate that, and we'll have all their names in the Sacramento Bee rankings that post tomorrow. How about the Lincoln Zebras? We mentioned them with their opening win over Rio Linda. Dylan Nell had an 80-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, an 80-yard punt return for a touchdown, and he had a touchdown run. So he showed up and he showed out. So that was really cool to see there. And just there's so many different guys. Rosemont with a big win, 53-0 over El Camino. Just all over the place. So I think what we'll do now is, Chris, let's start with you. Let's just go back and forth. Pick a game of note this week and who wins. We'll do it in quick order. Then Jordan, you pick a game, who wins, and I'll do it, and then we'll go one more time around and we'll preview some games with some quick hit thoughts. Chris, take it away.
I'll go down to the Stockton area. You've got the Holy Bowl going down there. St. Mary's of Stockton hosting Central Catholic this Friday night. I was at that game 2 weeks ago, or 2 years ago, not 2 weeks ago. It feels like 2 weeks ago, though, at this point, right? Time goes that fast, but it was fireworks. It was a score. It felt like every drive. It felt like Casa Roble Placer the other night, and multiply that by 5. Kenneth Moore, the 4-star UCLA commit, runs the ball. He can catch. He's a returner. Their quarterback, Jaden Galvin, is awesome. Ivan Huerta, 100 receiving yards over the weekend. Diego Hernandez had a big game. They had that huge one over Bishop Manogan. Central Catholic brings in some guys. Caden McHenry, we celebrate those multi-sporters. Baseball star, all region in baseball, makes a run there. And what is he? A great quarterback. He's got a Fresno State commit and Chase Perino on the outside. Carter Meeks is a Sacramento State-bound running back. Coming off a tough loss to Pleasant Valley, but don't forget Pleasant Valley is always a top dog out of the northern section. rivalries, expect us to be close. That's a game I'm looking forward to, but I'll still pick St. Mary's in that one. Explosive athletes, they're deep this year. Yes, people look at who left. Osani Gale's a 5 stars at IMG Academy now, but there's too much of St. Mary's to pick against them.
Hit us with a game. What do you
All
got?
right, one that really catches my eye here is Reed and 12 Bridges, and I will tell you why. 12 Bridges has rattled off 21 straight regular season wins. But last year, the Rhinos barely snuck out of Reno with a victory against Reed. Reed's been a powerhouse up there in Reno, and now they're coming to town. And I just have this hunch feeling that, it's going to happen again. We've all talked about it, or it's going to have to happen at some point. We've talked about the streak is going to have to go in the end at some point. I don't necessarily think Chris Bean wants to go 10-0 this year. I don't think he would complain if they go 10-0. But we've all talked about there's a lot of pressure that comes with 10-0 when you get into the postseason. And sometimes it's good to face the adversity of a loss and see how you respond to it. And, I guess I'm spinning this by setting it up saying 12 Bridges fans don't come for me because I'm doing you a favor. I'm seeing how you're going to bounce back, but I think Reed maybe snaps the streak this Friday night. I'm interested to see if they can do that.
Well said. I like it. I like it. I'm going to go back to Del Paso Heights. We have Central East, the number one rated team in the Central section, powerhouse out of Folsom or out of Fresno, and they come to Grant on Friday. And what do the Grant Pacers do after last week's hugely disappointing 51-13 loss to Folsom? The Pacers, as we addressed earlier in this podcast, have all the potential in the world. Well, now they got to show up. And Central East is formidable. I think Grant comes back big here and wins this game. If Central East rolls Grant, then Grant's got a real problem. And so that's the beauty of it. This incredibly ambitious schedule will also include De La Salle and Lincoln of San Diego here in the coming weeks. So I'm going to go with the Grant Pacers and a bounce back effort there. Um, Chris Jackson, you got another game that you want to quick hit on?
Let's look at Atwater Houston. I mentioned Atwater earlier, but Houston coming off a win. They've got a freshman phenom quarterback. They've got him, they've got an older guy. They split reps. But them going to Atwater, I think that place is going to be packed. That's going to be a big time game. And that's one of those games, especially the southern part of the section, you've got to look at. And I'm also looking at a Wheatland Union Mine. Both had really tough losses. Probably should give a game ball to Amador for what they did to Wheatland last week. But you'd like to think they respond. Wheatland's head coach texted me just saying that it's all on him. They're going to bounce back. Them playing Union Mine is a great small school battle. And let's look at Liberty Ranch of Galt hosting Linden too. Liberty Ranch always wins. They've always got great rushing attacks. And Linden, prolific. They've got DeAndre Smith on the outside. And what they just did at Destiny Christian. Galt might be actually a place to be on Friday night too.
Jordan, another game or two?
One that really catches my eye is a couple of 0-1 teams that I think are both better than your typical 0-1 team, but face tough challenges. Laguna Creek and Placer. This is the first time they're meeting since 2017. Laguna Creek, not always a school that people think of when they think of football, but this is a good Laguna Creek team, and Placer coach Joey Montoya is very high on them. What I really like about this Placer team is when I talked to Montoya on Saturday morning, it's easy to be frustrated when you lose in a shootout. And one thing he told me is he said, there were a few things where he felt they could have executed better when they had some momentum and thinks that game could have gone different. But I also liked, as he said, there were also some things I wish I had back as a coach, and, some things as a coaching staff that we're going to get better at too. Usually when coaches do that, that means a team is going to be just fine. If there's one thing I learned about Placer, it's don't pick against the Hillman and Auburn. So I like them to bounce back in this one. And then we touched on it earlier, Woodcreek Whitney. I mean, that's going to be a great game up there in Rockland. Two teams that are really looking to put themselves on the map. I give a little bit of the nod to Woodcreek in this one just because they tackled a bigger challenge there. And then let's go with the small school one for another one. East Nicholas at Colfax. That game is actually going to be played at Del Oro because Colfax's turf has not been finished yet. If you don't know the name Josiah Rubidoux around this area for Colfax, you're going to learn it soon because he is fantastic. They told me that they have a play that they call Moss, and it is just because he is so big that they can throw the ball up to him, and they know he'll catch it over almost any DB that they have. So that's a pretty nice play that you can have when you can just say, throw it up, he's down there somewhere. So I like the Colfax to win that one. They won it, or they lost that in a one possession game last year. I think they turned the fortunes this time.
Good stuff. We love the small schools. I'll go into another one. The Dixon Rams taking on the Winters Warriors. Two traditional community-based programs. Daniel Ward's the coach at Winters. He's an alum there. Wes Besson Gary is the coach at Dixon. His son's one of their key players, so that's always a good game. I remember years ago when I first got into this game, one of the hardest hits I ever seen was a Winters kid who laid out a Dixon kid. And I'm a small school product from the Oregon Mountains, and I saw that many years ago, and I'm thinking, wow, these kids could really hit down here. How about another great non-league game? Large school powerhouses, Granite Bay Grizzlies of Placer County and the Sierra Foothill League playing at the Pittsburgh Pirates in the East Bay. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. A lot of graduated guys, but got some good transfers. Tough to beat there. Going backwards, I'm going to go with Winters at home in their game against Dixon. How about a Saturday? We got a big Titanic tilt we kind of touched on earlier. The Folsom Bulldogs at Sarah of San Mateo, coached by Patrick Walsh. He's had several teams that have gone to the CIF State Open Division game. They've been a power. That's the one team that Folsom has not figured out yet, Sarah, as Chris Jackson alluded to. A year ago, Folsom probably should have won that game, didn't, got humbled, peeled off a whole bunch of wins in a row before losing to Pittsburgh in the NorCal finals. I think Folsom wins this game behind Ryder Lyons. I remember watching on the NFHS network 2 years ago when Ryder Lyons was a sophomore. And early in that game at Sarah, he got blown up on a play and he was rocked and he went to the sideline and he laid down for a moment. Then he finished the game. And it's like, okay, this guy's tough. I mean, he's really tough. They didn't win the game, but he showed a lot. I think Folsom wins that game, and having a nice head start with that big win against Grant helps. Been, and one thing we talk about player behavior. Paul Doherty has cracked on his Folsom kids. He's the Bulldogs coach over the years, and hey, too much of this emphasis on social media and me, and all the footage and the camera work and all that. Just play. Boy, his guys sure showed that the other night. But that was these coaches deal with that. We forget that they look like men in their shoulder pads and helmets, but they're still kids. And it's a constant message for all the coaches to behave better and those kind of things. All right, shifting gears really quick. We have UC Davis football, FCS ranked in the FCS kickoff classic the other night in Mobile, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, and Caden Pinnock, pride of Delaware High School, the Golden Eagles. He looked really good in his first start. And then it's 23-3 at one point, UC Davis, and then it's 23-17 with Mercer closing in with 7.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Lightning strikes. Lightning won the game. The game was declared a no contest, which is a real bummer. It's as if the game never happened, and there's no official record of it, and there's no stats official. A real bummer, but it may still play off years down the road, not years down the road, but months down the road for any playoff positioning, seedings like that. But Caden Pennick looked like he belonged. The dynamic dual threat. We saw him so many times in high school. We'll all go check out a game in Yolo County and talk about him. The Sacramento State Hornets with 73 new players take on South Dakota State, which won two of the last three FCS national championships. What is Sac State going to show? The junior college football scene kicks off. We have loaded regional programs, American River College, Sarah College, Sacramento City College, all heavy laden rosters with local players. It's good football. Jordan, you've done color work, play-by-play stuff. You'll be doing more of that. So a lot of football all over the place, and we're going to keep talking about it as we continue here. As we close out here, any closing thoughts on just anything, player behavior, team to look for, and all that? Chris Jackson, you first, then Jordan, and we'll close out.
Man, that's such a great question on the spot. I'm looking forward to these big games everywhere. Small school level, big school level. I've mentioned the Linden Liberty Ranch. I've mentioned Houston going down to Atwater. Escalon at Chavez, I should have mentioned, is a great one. TVO going to a program in Stockton. He was coached by an alum. Derek Graves is back home. He was the head coach at Kimball previously. He's got a 3-star in Jackson batch. There's so many. I'll be in the Bay Area Saturday in San Mateo to see if Folsom can finally beat Sarah. Does Sarah do a Sarah? They just figure out a way again. And Central at Grant, right? That's a massive, massive game. Central is loaded. Bion Harris, Brandon Smith is an Arizona commit. EJ Morgan is an absolute star. They love their quarterback play. They love everything there. How does Grant respond? That's the biggest thing, and excited to see how that all goes.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think it's going to be an exciting preseason really as a whole this week. When I looked at non-league, before the season started, I thought, it's not the strongest week in my area. After seeing how week one went down, I think this is one of the better weeks in my area. There's a few games I'm excited about. Also, closing thoughts from me: no contests are no fun. I think college football needs a rule like baseball has, where if you play X amount of quarters or X amount of time, the game stands with what the result is. Because here's the deal: Caden Pinnock's stats may not count, the game may not count, but guess what? My nachos still counted, my ticket money still counted, all that. So we need justice for the fans there. And my last soapbox, a non-sports thing: don't buy furniture off of Amazon, because I had to build a rocking chair for the nursery because I've got a little baby on the way in the next week or two, and this rocking chair was the bane of my existence for a couple hours on Saturday before Folsom Grant. Don't buy furniture off Amazon. You're better off going to a nice furniture
Why,
store.
why did you decide to buy furniture off Amazon?
I did not do this. My wife purchased the furniture.
Oh yeah,
And
Oh,
Jordan
it,
might be under
it's
the
just
bus.
it
just
is a
blame
hot
her.
button topic
Jordan
in
is
this
on the
house.
couch all week.
I may be sleeping on the couch. Who knows? I could get
You're gonna be in the
resorted to the
garage, my
garage at
friend,
some
or in the
point.
backyard. Oh my goodness. No, that's
Wow.
the and I just don't understand having a baby at this time of year. You can't have a baby in June or July. I mean, I just don't get it. Whatever. But
I think it's because I'm selfish at heart, to be honest.
well,
Yes.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
that's true. And congratulations on the incoming baby, and kudos to you getting a new pile of kindling since you couldn't figure out how to build that thing, so you just burned it in the backyard. But my closing thoughts are, hey, high school football players, coaches, appreciate what you have, and let's just dial down some of the bluster and the bravado. And the beauty of this sport, more than any other, it's either put up or shut up. And it is a privilege to play high school football. It's hard to play this sport. It's hot, it's demanding, it's violent. I always think to the complaining parents and the bickering parents who are convinced that the CIF is out to get them and the referees are out to get them and the media is out to get them. None of that true. Go to a Shriners Hospital and go visit a kid who would do anything to be able to run and play, and maybe your perspective might be changed a little bit. Appreciate what you have. We appreciate what we have. We appreciate doing this. We appreciate covering this area. For Chris Jackson, Jordan Georgeson, Joe Davidson here for the Three Stooges podcast. We will see everybody next week.